A very warm welcome to all of you to another episode of Engineering with Shamil. This is episode number 16, and we are going to discuss about two common wiring that is there in fire alarm system. So we have two wiring. One is the loop wiring, and the other one is zone wiring. So let's see which wiring goes to which system. So in my previous videos, if you have gone through that, you will understand that in fire alarm systems there are two types of system. The first type of system is the conventional system, and the second type of system is addressable system. And in fire alarm systems, we have two types of cabling. So the first cabling is called as loop wiring or loop cabling, and the second type is called as the zone cabling. So let us see what each type of cable is, and let us see which cabling goes to which system. So without further ado, let's begin the session. So zone wiring and loop wiring. So zone wiring is used in conventional systems. So what does zone wiring mean? So in conventional systems, we all know that there is a panel and then there are devices that is there in fire alarm systems, both in addressable and in conventional. In conventional and addressable, what differs is the way they are cabled, where the devices are connected to the panel. So in conventional system, we are using conventional control panel and the conventional devices. So all the devices from the panel to the last device is connected in zone wise. That is, a panel will be having 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Okay. Now, in market, there is 32 zone available. I am not sure about the 64 zone. Maybe it will be available, but I'm still not sure. So in such situation, what happens is every zone will be having a cable. It will be having its own dedicated wire pair. Okay. So it starts from the cable, it starts from the panel, and then it goes to the device. So and these devices will be in separate locations. Okay, so that is zone wiring. In loop wiring, it starts from the panel. By the way, loop wiring is already there in the addressable system. So it starts from the panel, it goes through all the devices, and it comes back to the panel. So that's why it is called as the loop wiring. So a single wire is going through all the devices and coming back to the panel. So this is the difference between loop zone wiring and the loop wiring. Zone wiring will be having, each zone will be having its dedicated wiring pair, whereas in loop wiring, it is one single cable which goes from the panel, connects through all the devices, and comes back to the panel. Okay, so these are the two wiring methods involved in fire alarm systems. Now, let's go in detail into zone wiring. So in zone wiring, as I said before, each zone in the conventional fire alarm system will be having a separate two-core cable from the panel to the devices. And these devices are connected in series on that cable. Okay. So the panel which is there, it will monitor each zone independently. That is, every zone, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, until whatever be the capacity of the panel, each zone will be monitored separately by the fire alarm control panel. Okay, so this is what zone wiring is all about. So if you see over here, it's a visual diagram just to understand how it is. So here, if you see, there's this panel, and each panel will be having separate zones. So in each zone, all the devices will be connected in series. Similarly, for zone 2 also and zone 3 also, all the devices will be connected in series. Okay, so this is how the zone wiring works. So let's see what are the advantages and the disadvantages of zone wiring in conventional systems. So the advantage is that zone wiring, it's actually simple. It is easy. It starts from the panel and it goes all the way to the devices and it gets terminated at the last device. And it is cheaper. It doesn't involve much cost. The conventional devices and the conventional devices and the control panel is cheaper when compared to the addressable panel. The disadvantage is that you need more cable. That is, if there are 32 zones, if a building is divided into 32 zones, let's say for example, we need 32 runs of cable from the panel to the respective zones. So that is one disadvantage. You need more cable. The second disadvantage is that this conventional wiring, that is the zone wiring, has less fault tolerance. Now, what do you mean by less fault tolerance? To explain less fault tolerance, there is a separate section within this video where we are going to discuss in detail. So we'll postpone the discussion on that in that slide. Now, next up we have the loop wiring. So in loop wiring, as I said, it starts from the panel, it goes through all the devices, and it comes back to the panel. So it's a single continuous cable that goes through all devices and returns to the panel. it forms a closed loop, and the panel, it communicates with all the devices in both the direction. It's not necessary that it should start from number one device to 300 device. It can go the reverse direction as well. That is from 300 to one device as well. So it's the communication is bidirectional. So if you see over here, this is the panel, and it goes through all the panels, it goes through all the devices, and then it comes back to the panel. It's just a diagrammatic representation. Okay. So the loop wiring, let's go through the pros and the cons. So the pros is that loop wiring will use less amount of cable when compared to the conventional system. It has high fault tolerance. Again, we are postponing the discussion on fault tolerance after a few slides. And then the third advantage is that the devices even work with one break in the circuit. As I said before, the communication for an addressable wiring, for an addressable loop wiring, is bidirectional. So even if there's a break in the circuit, the communication will still happen in either side. The disadvantage is that it is higher cost. That is the addressable devices and the control panel. It's expensive when compared to the conventional system, because it's not only the devices. There is so many things involved, like the addressing, like all the protocols, all the softwares, and all the hardwares which is needed to communicate with the devices for the protocol. And the design is more complex when compared to the conventional system. So this is about the loop wiring. So I said that we'll be talking about the fault tolerance. So here it is. So in fault tolerance, the zone wiring is having less fault tolerance, because, as I said, the zone wiring, it actually starts on the panel, it goes through all the devices, right? And then it terminates at the last device. Okay, it doesn't return back. Now, what happens over here is, if the panel, and also one more thing before I continue, there's one more point to note, that in zone wiring, the panel will monitor each zone independent of the other. Okay, so here, as you see, there is a panel, it goes through all the devices. So the first device will be okay, the second device will be okay. When it comes to the third device, there's a fault in it. Okay, when there's a fault in it, it's actually it's actually breaking the communication with the rest of the devices. That is the device after that. Okay, it need not be only in the device, it could be in the circuit as well. Okay, maybe a short circuit or open circuit can happen. So that if there is a fault in the circuit, the devices which appear after the fault, they will not be able to communicate with the panel. So because of that, what happens is the communication is lost, and we will not be able to monitor that zone. So that is one issue with the zone wiring. When it comes to loop wiring, suppose that this is the panel. Okay, the first device is okay, the second device is okay. When it comes to the third device, before going to third device, there's a break in the circuit. Maybe it could be a short circuit, or it could be an open circuit. Okay, if there is a break in the circuit, will the communication be lost for the devices after that? The answer is no. As I said before, and in the loop wiring, the communication is bidirectional. It can either go from panel to this side, or it can go from the other side as well. So here is, as you see, the communication for these devices will be taken care by this side, whereas for these devices will be taken care of this side. But the fault will still be shown. Okay, functionally the devices will be working, but there will still be fault displayed in the panel. So this is what loop wiring is all about when it comes to fault tolerance. Loop wiring is having higher fault tolerance when compared to the zone wiring. So let's compare both the zone wiring and the loop wiring. So the zone wiring is used in the conventional system, whereas loop wiring is used in the addressable system. The zone wiring, you need to have separate circuit for each zone, whereas in loop wiring, it's just a single loop. Okay, it starts from the panel, it goes through all the devices, and it returns back to the panel. The cable quantity required for the zone wiring is more, whereas in loop wiring, it is less. The fault tolerance in the zone wiring, it's less. As I said, if there is a break in the circuit, the devices after the break will not be communicating with the panel. That communication will be lost. It kills the zone. In loop wiring, it is high. If there is a break in between the circuit, the communication for the devices on the either side of the break will be covered by the panel. In the cost for the zone wiring is lower, whereas the cost for the high loop wiring is higher. Then now there's one more thing. The cost is actually for the device, for the equipment, okay? But when it comes to the cabling aspect, yes, you need to have more cables and the price will be increasing for the cables, okay? This is what cost indicates. Cost is actually for the equipment part, okay? And then complexity. So the complexity for the zone wiring, it's simple. It starts from the panel and it's just one way. There's no complication over there. Whereas for the loop wiring, it's a bit complicated when compared to the zone wiring, okay? And again, in zone wiring, it is best suitable for smaller buildings, simple layouts, whereas in loop wiring, it is essential for large or complicated buildings. Okay, so when should we use the conventional system? When should we use the zone wiring and when should we use the loop wiring? So if it is a small shop or office, it is recommended to use zone wiring. If you are having a tight budget, again zone wiring is suggested. If it is a large mall or a hotel, then you can use loop wiring over there because it has lots of devices and a loop needs to cover so many devices. So that's the advantage of the loop. If it is a mission critical facility like a hospital or an airport, loop wiring is again suggested. And if you need easy troubleshooting, if the troubleshooting needs to go easily, then loop wiring is suggested. If it is zone wiring, as I said, panel will monitor only the zone, it will not monitor the exact location. So because of that, conventional system is going to be a hell when compared to troubleshooting. So it is suggested that you actually go for the addressable system. So this, so let us summarize. So we are coming to the end of the video. So zone wiring requires separate cables for each zone, whereas loop wiring just requires single cable. It starts from the panel, goes through all the devices, and returns back to the panel. And it is simple and cheap, the zone wiring, whereas loop wiring is fault tolerant and efficient. Zone wiring is good for small buildings, whereas loop wiring is essential for larger buildings. So I will just leave you with this one message. Loop wiring, in case if you're using loop wiring will keep on working even with a broken fault. So with that note, I conclude my today's video. I know it's a bit complicated when it comes to zone wiring and loop wiring, but once you get inside that, once you get the hang of it, you will come to know how easy that concept is. Okay. So in case if you have any queries, suggestions, doubts, feedback, anything, please do comment in this chat box in the comment box section, and I will respond to your queries one by one after another. And thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. And before I sign off, I would humbly request all of you to kindly like, share, and subscribe so that I can create more videos in the future. Thank you once again, and goodbye.